Okay, testing. Can you hear me? Yes. Everybody hear me? Okay, good. We're trying to record this. The person who was volunteering to video our meeting had to back out because he got called into a work meeting kind of at the last minute. So we are improvising with 2 iPhones. So we're still going to produce something. So wish us the best. I want to welcome you and thank you so much for coming. I know that I got a few emails and messages saying people left town or whatever because of the windstorm. And those of us who live here are like, yeah. So I'm really, really grateful that you all came, and it's interesting that we have 3 emergency managers here tonight, and they all managed to come, even though the last few days have been kind of crazy. So welcome, and I'm really, really excited about the information that we've collected for you tonight. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is talk about remembering back to the first town hall gathering, which I know some of you attended. We watched the documentary Join or Die, which convinced us all of the importance of gathering with other people and creating like community connections. And so as a result of that, we have a few people who volunteered that night, and since then, we've created a contact list, thanks to Kathleen Olson. I saw her just a minute ago. Okay, thank you, Kathleen. And my husband, the retired baker, has invented the North Beach cookie, which he is going to hand out right now. Thank you, Rick. And Emmy Olson has began to establish the North Beach Network, which she is coordinating, and I'm going to let her give an update on that.
Hi, I'm Emmy Olson. And so we've begun our planning for the North Beach Network, and that involves you guys as well. So we are hoping our first meeting will be sometime in March or April. And this will be like a consistent thing, so you can know every first Tuesday, for example, to come show up without too much scheduling. So we're hoping to hold that at the community center. We're hoping to hold that at the community center. So we are looking for anybody who's on the auxiliary, I believe, can help us rent that space for free of charge. So we'd love you as a member anyways, but if you could come help us out with that as well. I also want to shout out, we are going to have a newspaper joining the North Beach soon. So I'm going to give just a quick 30 seconds to the Albertsons. This is Jeff right here.
Hi, thanks. So newspaper might be overselling it, but one thing that Ben and I got to talking after the first gathering of this group and realized, something that is maybe a gap for people in our part of the North Beach is having a single place to go to understand what's coming up in a given month, like what are the events I could go to, not just events like this, but public meetings like the school board and the fire commission, things like sporting events at North Beach High or Taholah High. By the way, if you're a basketball fan, you just missed some great basketball competition at both those schools in the recent season. Clubs that meet in the community, and then recurring events, things like the Kelpers Day Parade that happen every year. A number of the big events up here at Seabrook we would list as well. So this will primarily be kind of an events calendar in its first iteration on a single sheet. My partner Ben is going to publish this, and it's going to be printed on actual paper. And it's going to be printed on his antique letterpress print, which is in his studio down on Main Street if you haven't seen it. And we will mail this to every PO box initially in Pacific Beach and Moclips once a month. So our goal is to get the first edition out for covering the month of April. So look for it to hit your mailboxes if we're successful at that in the last part of March. And it will just kind of go through and give you a day-by-day, blow-by-blow look at what's upcoming in the area that you can go and participate in and learn things and meet people. And hopefully social events too. A question?
Yes, so it's a newsletter that is like updating the local information that's going on, or is it more like in-depth?
It's really intended initially just to be an events calendar, and we may get into publishing some more editorial type news content in the future, but that requires actual journalism, which takes time, and so I think we're going to keep it to an events calendar and try to get that going, get that moving. We want it to be tangible rather than this just being like a website or a Facebook page or something. The kind of thing that you bring home from the post office and it sits on your kitchen counter throughout the month and you can refer to it and get reminded of things. And the being on paper, I think, is important these days because it's kind of rare to run into that, and I think it'll help it stand out. So that's, I went over my 20 seconds.
Thank you. Yeah, you can find the information for our first meeting. It'll be in that newsletter or in the calendar.
And I forgot to mention, if you have an event, a club, anything you're a part of that you want to have listed for April, we have set up an email address. We're going to call the paper the Hydrophone, and there's a whole story behind what that name means for those of you who don't get the reference that we'll explain in the first issue. But if you email Pacific Beach Hydrophone, HYDROPHONE, all one word, at Gmail, then with your event information, we'll get what we need from you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, great. That will be great, Jeff, because so far our entire outreach is through Facebook. So, put it on the Friends of Moclips, Friends of PP, Seabrook Facebook page, and that's the way it goes. I'm really sorry that I had the name tags at home, name tags for you to put your name on, but I put them in a safe place, and I can't find the safe place. So please feel free to introduce yourself to your neighbors and so on and so forth. So I'm sorry about that. Okay, so now we've arrived at what I think might be one of the most exciting points of the moment, and that is we happen to have in our midst, there are so many people who live on the North Beach that have incredible talents, incredible experience, incredible knowledge. And Elaine LaMarche is the most amazing artist I personally have ever met. You may have seen some of her stuff at Saturday Market, but that's just a very small introduction into what she does. I got to see what she has in her house and all the projects she's working on, and it completely blew my mind. So when we decided to set up the North Beach Network, I thought, I wonder if Elaine would agree to do like a poster for us that sort of expresses the whole concept. And she agreed. So come on over. Right now we're gonna unveil this wonderful work of art. And since you can't see it from the back, from the easel, I'm gonna also flash it on the screen. So please, unveil the art. Oops. Oh, sorry. Okay, I forgot about this slide. Okay, drum roll. fix this. Okay. No, my concept, but she designed it. I mean, and it's just 2 nations, 9 communities, about 2,000 people. So this is the North Beach Network. And this is just the beginning. So you can come up and take a look at it later. But now, we have a very full agenda. So we're going to get right into the very first presenter, and that is Scott Cameron. He's a geologist. He worked for more than 30 years for Shell Oil. And I wrote down here what his position was when he retired. He was, oh, I forgot to bring my glasses.
You're wearing.
See, I need an assistant. Oh. Assistant. Thank you for being my assistant. Okay. So, when he retired, he was VP of Deep Water Exploration and Appraisal for Shell's Upstream Americas business. And he has a PhD, a master's degree, and a bachelor's degree from MIT, Rice, and Brown University, respectively. And he's lived here since 2007. So he's a diehard North Beacher. So he's going to talk about our earthquake, tsunami, double trouble, and if you're prepared, you don't have to be scared. Okay.
Thanks, Marie. Can you hear me okay from there? Okay. So I'm Scott. I've been a geologist for 50 years. Penny, stand up, please. That's my wife, Penny. She's also a geologist. We've had a home in the North Beach since 2007. We've been voters since 2008. So, and we're going to talk about the single biggest hazard we face, natural hazard we face on the coast, which is the Cascadia subduction zone and all that comes with it. Now, geoscience data collected over mainly since the 1980s indicates that we're due for a big one here. That's a magnitude 9 earthquake and tsunami. It has potential for massive casualties and massive property damage, very similar in scale to what happened in Japan in 2011, where there were about 20,000 fatalities and $300 billion of damage. In 2020, the National Preparedness Report from FEMA ranked the Cascadia subduction zone, earthquake and tsunami, as the #1 catastrophic risk in the United States. So it's a biggie. So what can we do to help reduce the loss of life and economic damage? I'm going to be drawing here on work done by a couple of my friends, Ray Wells and Brian Atwater from the USGS. These are the guys who really put the story together out here. I'm just sharing a lot of the stuff that they've done. Okay, so the earthquake sources that generate tsunamis that are of relevance to the U.S. are mainly in the Pacific, and they're outlined here in red at various plate boundaries, at various trenches. Most of those ones outlined in red are a long way from us. The nearest is Alaska, and they send tsunamis our way every few years of varying sizes. But we get advance warning on those of a few hours to allow us to respond. The one that doesn't let us do that is our homegrown baby. It's called the Cascadia subduction zone, and it's right offshore. Now, here is a block diagram of the Pacific Northwest. This is the kind that geologists like to see because it shows cutaway of cross section. So We have three major earthquake sources that impact us. They're all related to the subduction of the one Fuca Oceanic plate offshore beneath the North American plate here. And it slides down on a subduction zone along a low-angle fault that gets deeper and deeper as it goes down. We worry about three different kinds of earthquakes here. The big one we worry about is along this surface here we call the megathrust. The last one happened in 1700. That's the one we'll spend most time talking about. We also get deep earthquakes. Some of you remember the Nisqually earthquake. Some of you may even remember one in 65.
Rumbling. Try it up there.
Okay. Is it still rumbling?
Yes, no, it's not.
Okay, I'll try to raise it higher. Take you higher. Okay. Okay, come on. Sorry. Okay. Anyhow, those deep earthquakes happen much more frequently. There's also earthquakes that happen along Puget Sound valleys. The shallow earthquakes, like along the Seattle Fault, thankfully they don't happen very often. But the big one we're worried about is the subduction zone earthquake. There are three big hazards from that kind of earthquake system. You want me to try that one there? Yeah, that's the one we switched out. Rick didn't like that. It's called coastal subsidence. When the earthquake occurs, the whole coastline will drop 2 to 3 meters, all from Vancouver Island to Northern California. It creates wonderful things called the ghost forests, which record the geology, but it does change things dramatically. The big hazard is tsunamis. That's where most of the fatalities come from. Uplift of the seafloor offshore brings these giant waves in. We'll talk more about those quite a bit. Also, strong ground shaking, really strong ground shaking. How bad depends on how close you are to the source offshore. Landslides and liquefaction occur too. Now, some of you may wonder, how do you make a tsunami? Well, okay, so it starts, along this, come on, there's it. Doggone it. The battery is dead. You see it? Oh, there it is. Okay. So it starts along this boundary right here, where the plates are meeting one another at shallow levels. But between the earthquakes, we have a kind of a stick-slip system here. The plates slide freely at great depth. That's why we have frequent earthquakes down at great depth. But up shallow, offshore, near where we live, frictional resistance causes things to stick. And it sticks for a long time. Sometimes it sticks anywhere from 300 to 600 years before it slips. While that's going on, the onshore area still gets squeezed, so things actually come up. That's why we don't have sea level rising here. Sea level relatively is actually falling here because the ground is coming up where we live. But eventually, it breaks. It comes unstuck, and we have a catastrophic earthquake. This plate relaxes back here, and we get substance along the whole margin. We get uplift offshore, displaces water, sends the tsunami in. Bad news. Okay, this is the kind of thing we fear. This is the Japan earthquake of 2011. This is the Sendai, big city in the north. That's their airport there on the right. Just about to get hit by the tsunami coming in. Those waves come in starting 15 to 30 minutes after the ground shaking ends. Multiple waves, multiple heights. In addition to the tsunami, the second thing that causes a lot of problems is the great shaking that occurs. We've done modeling of what a 9.0 earthquake would look like along the Pacific Northwest. Basically, the place that gets the most shaking is right where we live. Isn't that interesting? We're at risk for severe to extreme shaking. Along the I-5 corridor, it's strong shaking, but it's going to be felt throughout the state. Probably 3 to 6 minutes of shaking. The impacts, based on scenario analysis done by FEMA, but was supported by other agencies, indicates the combined effects in terms of impacts on people and property are several times that of Katrina and Sandy combined. So we lived in New Orleans just before Katrina hit. We know what that one did. The thought that it could be several times that is pretty harrowing. Fatalities and property damage on the order of what happened in Japan is what we're looking at here. Okay, so what can we do to help reduce the loss of life and economic damage? Well, for the earthquake, the most important three things are improve building safety from collapse. Luckily, with the new earthquake codes that we have in the state since around early 2000, that is a much higher likely proposition. But we still have places where that's an issue. Notably, Pacific Beach Elementary School is right on the top of the list of those issue areas. When the earthquake occurs, drop, cover, and hold. Do not try to move. Get yourself in a stable place and stay and ride that sucker out. If you try to move, you'll not be knocked to the ground. And as soon as the shaking stops, get to a safe place. Get out of the building you're in, and since we live along the coast and are worried about tsunamis, you want to get out of the way of the tsunami that will be coming shortly. Now, the tsunami, the earthquake is probably going to be your first warning. We have tsunami sirens here. They're great. They're really meant for distant tsunamis to help alert us to something coming from Alaska or Tonga. We had one a couple years ago from Tonga. Whether they'll survive, how many of them will survive a big earthquake, we don't know. So when the earthquake happens, assume the tsunami is coming. That's the safest thing to do. Most important thing is to know your evacuation routes. And luckily, we're blessed in the North Beach with a lot of high ground. We are very fortunate. We have places to go. We are much more fortunate than the folks who have no places high to go, and that's like Ocean Shores, Westport. They have different solutions they have to come up with. They have to rely on vertical evacuation structures to stay safe. Increasingly, we're seeing rollout of early warning systems that are coming. The USGS is working on some, and stay tuned for those. Those may be of help. They may give us valuable seconds to maybe even as much as half a minute of warning for a Cascadia earthquake down the road. I don't think we're there yet, though. And support the federal, state, and local preparations. The folks in the back of the room here do great work for us to prepare for this. Keep up your support to them. Listen to them, what they have to say tonight. Okay, now we've made some milestones out here. We're actually big leaders in some stuff. The first vertical evacuation structure in the country was constructed in Grays Harbor in South Beach, down at Acosta in Westport. It's a spectacular facility. I had a chance to visit. You can put all the kids on the roof. It sits above the gymnasium and cafeteria, and you can put a large part of the community on the roof too. So it's a community asset to keep people safe. But we need like 100 in coastal Washington, and all the parts of Washington are at risk. 20 in Ocean Shores alone. Here's the problem we have in Ocean Shores. This is the inundation map for Ocean Shores. Anywhere from 10 to 60 feet of water on the depth over Ocean Shores when the big one comes. No place will be safe. You got to go up. Now, fortunately, we're building the first of those evacuation structures right now. The North Beach School District is building that at Ocean Shores Elementary. It's a great step forward, but we need many more. It's going to be a long-term project to get those assets put in place. Further south, the folks down Shoalwater Bay Tribe put in the second BES down in the Topland area. So well done, Grays Harbor County. There's a lot of information you can avail yourselves of to learn more. The state's DNR website, using stuff put together by the Washington Geologic Survey, has a lot of great information. You can look at tsunami simulations to see if the tsunami coming to your town. That's a useful thing to do. It sobers you right up, let me tell you. This is the one for the whole of the coast. There's tremendous cooperation that's gone on over the last couple of decades between all the different agencies, the feds, the state, the counties, to really cooperate to get ready. One of the key things they've done is put together a series of scenarios, common scenarios that they're going to prepare for to assess the hazard. We kind of look at one common worst case, not near worst case scenario to prepare for. So we're really trying to meet anything except a really extremely unlikely event. So well done there. Okay, so we talked about the overview here. Okay, that's the big picture. So what about us on the North Beach? What's going on over here that we need to know about? Well, the state has not been idle. They have put together a whole series of new tsunami evacuation maps for the whole state. It's an effort that's gone on for several years. We were the last to get ours because we're the least populated part of the coast. But we got ours, and they're very, very helpful. And we're going to talk about those tonight. Okay, the model, event along the entire Cascadia subduction zone happens every 300 to 600 years. The current chances for an event happening in the next 50 years, that's what we typically do in geology, look at 50-year probabilities, 15 to 25%. That's a pretty high chance. That means there are people in this room, some of the younger ones in this room, who will be around in that window of time. And so, you got to think real seriously about that. Shaking will go on for 3 to 6 minutes throughout the state. Then the major tsunami will hit the coast in as little as 10 to 15 minutes after the shaking ends. And then it goes all the way into Olympia. Again, we talked about some of the other impacts. Okay, so how do you model for this? What do you prepare for this on a local basis? Well, they put together a series of what they call the inundation maps for all the different areas. Here's the one for Quinault Sheet, which is where we live, and I'm just showing a piece of this. This is the water depth, maximum water depth during the tsunami for places from Mo Cliffs down to Roosevelt Beach. So what it shows here, blue is greater than 60 feet of water. The whole beach is under 60 feet plus of water. Mocrox Beach, 51 feet. Pacific Beach State Park, 44 feet. Pacific Beach Elementary School, 29 feet. So this is pretty deep doo-doo, So this is, now, to make these, now the areas that are shaded in gray here, that's the high ground. So we're lucky we've got high ground. Notice this map has some high ground. The one I showed you for Ocean Shores, there's none. So we can walk. We can walk to our safety, and that's what these maps are about. They're the tsunami evacuation walk time maps. So I'm going to start with the one at Seabrook to kind of orient you. They're posted around the wall on the halls. You've got them outside, some for you to take home with you. We send them, in Seabrook, we send them out to people. Once a year, we do an update on hazards, and that's one of the things we share. Okay, we're going to talk about orienting to all these maps. They all have a common legend. The places you want to end up when the tsunami occurs are in the tan areas here. That's the high ground. That's out of the tsunami inundation zone. The black line, thin black line here, is the edge of the inundation zone. The yellow and orange shows areas where people can move in, that are passable areas that are going to be underwater. And the yellow areas are areas that are going to be underwater where you can walk out of to get to high ground in 0 to 15 minutes. So those are good places to be. Now, why is 0 to 15 minutes important? Because the estimated wave arrival time is 20 minutes after shaking starts. Shaking goes on 3 to 6 minutes, say 5 minutes. You want to be able to get to high ground within 15 minutes. This is at a slow walking pace, so an amble, So if you're in one of those areas that's labeled 30 here, that's 15 to 30 minutes to get to high ground. You need to haul ass, okay? You need to be ready to move. So that's why you want to keep jogging, walk your dog and things like that. But, okay, I'm sorry. Now, also shown on this map are kind of key evacuation symbols. The A's are the assembly areas. Those are the designated safe spots, refuge areas we want everybody to go to assemble. That's where we're going to do head counts. That's where some of them we have supplies that you're going to hear more about, cash. We have 2 in Seabrook, 1 at the tennis courts. That's the main one. We also have 1 at Fernwood Square for Fernwood. The other key thing here are the evacuation routes themselves. Shown in purple, those solid purple lines with arrows on them, those are the core evacuation routes you want to follow to get to where you want to go. Roads and trails that are going to be underwater are shown either red solid or red dashed. Just for reference here, here's Sunrise Pool, for those of you who live in Seabrook. If the big one comes, after the shaking stops, you head out up the road here, head up Horizon Street, head up Merriweather, and go to the assembly areas. So you want to figure out where it is you want to go from your home and the places you like to hang out. That's kind of important. Now, a couple other things about Seabrook. Okay. All of the coastal areas are at risk. Everything west of 109. Pacific Glen, almost the whole thing is in the inundation zone. No, I'm sorry, northwest corner. Pacific land, it shows you're above the inundation zone, not by much. I wouldn't stay there if I were you. I'd get to high ground. And Elk Creek partially in the inundation zone. A significant part of the area north of Elk Creek is in the inundation zone as well, for various reasons. Part of the reasons there's so much in here is it's kind of the perfect area hydrodynamically for water from the flood wave coming in to get trapped by the next wave coming in, and it actually doesn't drain out very well. The bathtub fills up and spills out. So that's part of the challenge we have in Seabrook. But in general, the good news is that almost everywhere is within the 15-minute walking distance. That's very good news. Okay, so just a couple of things to say. These maps are, and this relates to all the maps you can see, they're all designed to look at the hazard from a local source, earthquake offshore. It's not necessarily an Alaskan earthquake. That's a different kind of, we'll talk a little bit about that later. Shaking 3 to 6 minutes, tsunami waves are 60 feet at the coast. They can come within 15 to 20 minutes after shaking stops. Drop cover and hold in place until the shaking stops. Don't try to walk while it's shaking. The ground will immediately subside, perhaps 2 to 3 meters along the coast. That adds to the landslide hazard we have there, because it means those coastal bluffs are going to get pounded even more. Immediate evacuation to high ground or inland is essential from the tsunami inundation zone and all areas west of State Route 109. That's my recommendation, because I think everything west of 109 is at risk for landslide and rogue waves. That's me personally. And by the way, I'm not a licensed geologist in Washington. I'm a geologist in Texas. So, but I do know some stuff. The assembly areas are the tennis courts and Fernwood. Do not drive. Evacuate by foot. The roads will likely be impassable. Things will have fallen down in the earthquake. We assume all the bridges will be out. They were out in the Alaskan tsunami. They'll definitely be out in this earthquake. So you won't be able to get out through 109. They may continue for several hours. So do not re-enter the tsunami zone. Wait until John Holcomb and his team tell you that it's possible to go back. That's what you want to look at your local safety experts. Additional warning for those on the beach. Some of our evacuation routes rely on stairways. They may or may not survive. So I would assume you're going to go out through Elk Creek. Okay. Wasn't that great news? Okay, now let's talk about Pacific Beach. Well, I think I can do that from here. You're going to DLC these maps, so I'm afraid if I change it. So this is part of a much bigger map, and I'm going to focus in on the Pacific Beach area. Good news about Pacific Beach right here is you've got high ground to the north, and that's where the assembly area is at our fire station. We are blessed to have the fire station in close proximity to one of our major population areas. In addition, the fire station is the assembly area for boat clips as well, so it has a key role to play. A couple key things about the challenges in Pacific Beach: all the bridges will go down. Joe Creek bridges, both will go down. And so that really controls the evacuation routes people have. All of the commercial area of Pacific Beach pretty much is going to be in an inundation zone. You're going to want to head and get yourself over to the junction of State Route 109 and Ocean Beach Road, and then head up State Route 109 to the assembly area. That's the thing you want to do. Do not try to go over the bridge over the old railroad grade cut over by the Navy base. That will probably come down. Okay. Let's see. What else I want to say? Folks down here in Diamond Drive. There we go. Diamond Drive, the lower lying areas will be inundated. You've got to get to high ground up in here. So you go up this street right here, or you come over to 109 and go up. And you're going to be staying in the Makers Village area of Seabrook until things subside. That's where you want to go. One other thing to mention about Pacific Beach: we do have some of the tsunami signs we have, or evacuation signs we have in Pacific Beach are not up to date. The most notable one is at the corner of Ocean Beach Road and 109. It points everybody to head out Ocean Beach Road down to the Joe Creek Bridge. You can see that's still in the flood zone, so we don't want to go that way. So we need to get some new signs in there. It needs to be a high priority. The good news for Pacific Beach, the great news for Pacific Beach is almost everybody lives in the 15-minute walk zone. So that's encouraging. Okay, let's jump to one other thing. I mentioned before we also have to worry about hazards from distant tsunamis. They're different than, and the only good calibration we have for that is for Alaska. That's the one we most worry about because that's closest to us, and we got hit by it before in '64. Anybody here in '64 for the Alaska tsunami? Anybody actually living out here? Were you living out here? Okay. There's some people who did, and they have some very interesting stories. Okay, these two maps were provided by the Washington Geological Survey back to me in 2021. They gave us early copies of our flood maps for this area, both the one we just looked at, which is the big Cascadia flood zone maps. You can see here's the flood zone in Pacific Beach, here it is in Seabrook. Here's what an Alaska tsunami would look like. Seabrook actually does pretty well. Very little of Seabrook is threatened by an Alaska tsunami because most of it's above 20 feet elevation, 30 feet elevation. That's the good news. Pacific Beach, the lower elevations in the commercial district, including the state park, are in the inundation zone. The bridge will probably go out as it did in '64, and probably this bridge will be threatened as well. So again, heading up to the fire station is going to be a good move. We are still waiting for the Alaska maps to come out statewide. That is a priority for the state, but they thought it was more important to get full coverage on the Cascadia event for the whole state first, and that's what they prioritized. Okay, so that's all you can see about Alaska tsunamis. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
So an Alaska quake in '64, how big was that wave?
92. Well, how big was it? It was about 20 feet high.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's a great report that came out in 2000 that details a lot of pictures of the impacts on a lot of places. Now, there wasn't that much out here,
Right.
but it shows the damage in a lot of our downtown Pacific Beach. Things were washed out.
So the Joe Creek Bridge,
Joe Creek Bridge was gone. So
because of the wave
Yeah,
coming
the wave energy, the wave coming in, the velocity took out that bridge.
So it's not the earthquake in Alaska.
No, shaking. We won't feel a shaking.
Right.
The great news is the tsunami early warning system is really designed to help us prepare for distant tsunamis coming in, and it does a great job doing that. They give us the warnings. The challenge with it is for things that are coming when they're 15 minutes offshore. That's a problem. Okay, let's go to MOCLIPS now. MOCLIPS, again, the main, just to get oriented here, the high ground is to the south and the north of MOCLIPS. Again, the MOCLIPS River is a big divide. Both bridges in MOCLIPS will go down. That's a real problem. It means everybody north of the river has to go heading up towards the old MOCLIPS Highway junction to get to high ground. That's luckily most of them can do it in 15 minutes. The folks above the bluffs are shown here in dark gray. Everywhere they're shown, they're impassable. That's what they're showing us. Everybody above the bluffs, they're within that 15-minute zone. They can head south to the assembly area at the fire station. The flood zone goes right through the post office parking lot. So you want to get past the post office parking lot and on your walk south. The problem for MOCLIPS is the beach. Because the bridge is out here, they can't come out that way. There's only one way to get off the beach from Mocrops proper, folks living on Pacific Avenue and Beach Lane, and that's a trail that is not marked currently through the brush that leads up to the market and to the siren and then on out. We need a sign. We need a sign on that trail. I'm just sharing it. I think it would be really helpful for the people who live there. Notice that significant parts of the population homes here are outside the 15-minute zone. Only the ones closest to the trail are in the 15-minute zone. So we got folks who are at risk here. Folks in Mocrops are going to really have to hoof it to get out. Okay. The other place I'm worried about, in MOCLIPS, is Sunset Lane. This is a little pretty little neighborhood down the switchback road, comes off 109. They have time here to get out, but they have to go back up the road, and they have to go right through the landslide prone slopes there. So you got to watch out for that. So both those areas, you need to make sure people are aware of what risks they're in. I don't think there's actually a sign right now showing Sunset Lane as being in the tsunami hazard zone. We need to rectify that. Okay, let's go to Taholah. Taholah, again, like every place else, we're blessed by these wonderful bluffs that give us our high ground. The bluffs allow us to have assembly areas that are out of the inundation zone. The challenge is we have big inundation zones that we have to get people out of. So folks in Taholah need to get up to the assembly area at the tribal center. The good news is they've really done a great job in Taholah marking the evacuation routes. The signage they've put out is, I think, excellent. You want to either walk up 109 and then over the trail that's well marked to get into the assembly area, or if you're coming from downtown past the school, which is right here, there's a trail that leads back up. That's another way to get off. There's also a trail from the museum here to get up. So good parts of Taholah, a lot of it is in that 15-minute zone. Unfortunately, the main commercial district, where the marina is in the 30-minute zone. Folks are going to have to hoof it there. You're going to have to get people moving. And because like every place else, earthquake goes for 5 minutes, wave comes 15 minutes after that. So we don't have much time. Okay, so with that cheery news, we're now going to be set up for some more stuff. Maria, I think I'm going to turn it over to you.
But I think we're going to come back to some of these maps later on at the end and talk about the individual areas.
Yeah, great, yeah. So, I'm done with my slides. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Take yours up and I'll get this way.
Okay, so, yeah, I think that this is really scary stuff, but I'm really hoping that knowing what you learned tonight, you'll feel a lot more prepared, and that's what makes you feel less scared. The interesting thing is when we moved here in 2018, the only research that I did was looking at the tsunami maps. You would think that at our age and our health challenges, I would have checked into the medical services, but no. I only looked at the tsunami map and wanted a house that was 100 feet in elevation. So we do have that. And I hope that actually, my hope is that the people in Seabrook, including the people who have homes here, who don't live here full-time, would make their homes available to people from the flooded areas or whose houses might be damaged. So I would very much like to see that kind of thing happen, and that's part of this, maybe a wonderful outcome of the North Beach Network. So, okay, now we're going to start talking about how to prepare. And our first speaker is somebody that I just met for the first time tonight, but we've talked on the phone. Hannah Cleverly is the Deputy Director of Emergency Management for Grace Harbor County. And I think that really means that she's the head of emergency management. I looked, she's like right below the sheriff, so he's got crimes to solve. So I think that she's probably the head honcho for Grace Harbor County Emergency Management. And I really am grateful to her for agreeing to come on short notice. And she has 2 small children at home. She lives in Aberdeen. And she's been the Deputy Director since 2018. Before that, she was head of emergency and security at Grace Harbor Hospital. And she has a lot of training in healthcare. So Hannah, can you tell us what the government has got to do with it, especially state and county?
Well, hi everyone. So yes, I am Hannah Cleverly. I am the Deputy Director of Emergency for the county. Yes, the sheriff is actually the Director of Emergency Management for the county, but he has given me the green light to go and do great things. You guys just sat through a presentation, which, there's a reason myself and also Scott, we're not on the tourism board for Grace Harbor County because these are the kind of things we bring to parties. Okay, yeah. And, I'm so glad that you guys are here, and thank you so much for putting this on. It's a lot of energy and effort to put on an event like this, and I'm very happy to be here with a lot of my colleagues also. And the pictures that we present, and a lot of the things when we talk to the public, sometimes it's not easy to listen to. And especially when you're listening in, and you're living in an environment that is subject to something that we talk about, this catastrophic event. Now in our office, tsunami and earthquake are just two of many hazards that we have. And for Grace Harbor County, I kind of say that we win the hazard lottery. We have a lot of them, and you guys got to experience them, a part of it yesterday. So, 70+ mile an hour winds is just another winter Monday for us. Now, in other areas, that is really impactful and very, very challenging, but I think Grace Harbor residents can ride it out pretty well. But what comes with that is resilience and talking about preparedness. So raise your hand, I like doing a little show and tell. Raise your hand if you have a go bag in your car. Okay, raise your hand if you have preparedness supplies at your house. Awesome. Raise your hand if you have, if I talk about a go bag, do you guys know what that is? Yes? Okay. Clint will talk about that a little bit in his presentation also. But raise your hand if you have a go bag for your pets. I love it. Okay. So a lot of the things that we talk about is what to be prepared with and how do we do that. So I kind of have a joke with Pat Anderson, who is on KXRO Cough Talk. I go on with him a lot, and we always talk about go bags. And we are just broken records on go bags and preparedness. And what I really want people to understand is taking that thought to put things in a bag is really the first step. Those of you that have go bags, was it easy to put together? A little challenging? Yeah, it is. It's a little bit hard to put together. Fortunately for me, I got little kids, so my food and granola bars change over a lot because we're in the car and I'm like, Mom, I'm hungry. It's okay, grab the go bag. There's always food in there. But some of the things that are really challenging to plan for are some of the easiest things that we can hold on to. I had a guy come to a conference I was at, which is a Washington State Emergency Management Association. Clint and I happened to be on the board, which is really exciting. But we had a presentation that came in, and it was a guy who was presenting on preparedness. Now, this guy came into a group of emergency managers and talked to us about preparedness. Now, talk about, kind of preaching to the choir, right? But one thing he said is, why is it so challenging for people to be prepared? What's our biggest challenge? To get the population prepared. And how can we make it easy for them? How can we make it easy for all of us? Because when this happens, this whole thing that you guys just learned about, when that happens, I'm in Montesano, or my office is in Montesano, and I have four bodies that work in Grace Harbor County Emergency Management. Grace Harbor County is 2,200 square miles, 77,000 people on a resident day. Now, that doesn't talk about population influx from summer months, which you guys all live here, so you know what this looks like in the summer. So 77,000 people, 2,200 square miles, 9 cities, 2 tribes, 4 people. 6 people, because I count them with me. But it's a small group of us that are trying to get out here and educate you guys. So you guys have already taken the first step with being engaged. But in all reality, and to focus back to kind of preparedness, but also to focus back on Cascadia. The first thing when you are kind of lost in the preparedness, hamster wheel. First thing to do is water. Try that. I know my husband, who is my biggest critic, there's a whole story about windstorms and when we send out high wind warnings. You would think that's his call to action to bring the generator home from the shop and the chainsaw. 2 times now, no. So even my husband is a challenge for me. But the one thing I can guarantee with him is that he's got a case of water in our cars all the time. And it's the easiest thing because how many times we've been on a road trip, you either have a tickle in your throat, or you have someone that's like, hey, I'm kind of thirsty. Can we stop at the gas station for water? No, let's keep rolling. Here's water, Try water. Try preparing for water. Then it makes it a little bit easier trying to add a box of granola bars into a bag, a med kit. First aid kits, the best stocking stuffers ever. We don't have little people in here, okay? Sorry, I forget sometimes my audience. But first aid kits, they're really wonderful things to give to people because they're all the simplest things that we don't think to buy, right? So anyways, water. Try water if you're kind of stuck in that hamster wheel, try that first. But to go to Cascadia, and again, Cascadia is one of 2 tsunami hazards that we have. I know Cascadia is an earthquake, but there's 2 tsunamis. And Scott talked about it. The local event, which is where all the people feel all that shaking, that is your warning, right? And then distant earthquakes from Alaska or Tonga, which put us into a tsunami advisory. Now, I want to just clear something up about the sirens. So the AHAB sirens, everyone know where their closest AHAB siren is? If you want to be a volunteer and do observing for us on the first Monday of every month, we would love that. We have a form you can fill out. We put Eli and John and his team really help us out with the Seabrook ones. But we are doing our best to kind of capture all the AHAB sirens every Monday. Spoiler alert, the next one's coming up on Monday. But the AHAB sirens go off at a warning level. So Tonga, when we had a tsunami advisory, January 15th of 2022, the sirens did not go off because it was not at a warning level. January of 2018, when we had a tsunami watch, sirens do not go off. But there is something that does go off and can sit in your house. Clint, be my Vanna. Yes. All have their NOAA weather radios. Yes, all have their NOAA weather radios are going to be your best friends. You can pick them up for $50 to $60, or Graysburg County Emergency Management gives them away at our expo, which is July 26th for I'll send you an email, in Aberdeen. But those outdoor sirens are meant to be heard outdoors. So we have a lot of people that call her and said, I didn't hear it. They are meant to be heard outdoor, and they are subject to wind, climate, and everything that is happening in outside. So all hazard alert broadcast radios are the best things for your home. Another thing which we push a lot from our office is let's do a show of hands. On what day was it? Sunday at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Who got a text message or voice call of a high wind warning? Yes, that was me. You're welcome. I'm so sorry. That's me. Or let's see, was it yesterday or this morning was the high surf? You're welcome. I got that message at 11:30 at night. I made a decision that I was going to wake you guys up in the middle of the night for that one. I will wake you up. I have no shame in my game, for sure. But in this little trifold, which is in the back and around, is information here on our alerting system. So Grays River County Emergency Management and both tribes have an alerting platform that, you have one, I think, don't you? Yeah. Have an alerting platform that you can sign up for, and it's free. So for us, you just either do a QR code, you can send a short code to a text Grays Harbor, and you will sign up for our alerts. And what we do, and the beauty of our alerting system is that we can geo-target alerts to specific areas. So anytime the National Weather Service puts out a warning, we roll that warning out to a specific geographical area. So Highland warning, that was on our coast, so we sent that out to the coast. Earlier today, I sent out a flood warning to Grand Mountain, which is actually Clint, near where Clint works, over in the Oakville area, because that affected their areas. Hopefully none of you guys got that alert, because you should have. But what we want to do is be able to notify you in the event of an emergency. Now, yes, we talk about high wind warnings, tornado warnings, which was not that long ago either. We can send those out through our alerting system. It's free. You just put your address in. You can put multiple addresses and multiple phone numbers into one profile. The biggest thing is we want to alert you guys. I'll be completely transparent because I think that's the name of the game here. Remember how I said there were 77,000 residents that lived in Grace Harbor County? Take a stab on how many have signed up for our alerting platform.
10,000. 2,000.
10,000. Just under 10,000. So you can see why a lot of times we talk about go bags, but we also very much talk about our alerting platform. Because it could be tsunami or earthquake, and for us, we don't have the ability to just focus on one hazard, right? Because what also is here in Seabrook is a wildfire hazard. You know, we work very closely with the fire departments, and we work very closely, but if they had to if we had a situation here and they needed to notify all of you, we're of course gonna tie in with Seabrook and with John and his team and with the fire department, but how do you know? We wanna be able to message you guys, so we can send a message to people that we need to evacuate now. We use a stoplight, kind of red, yellow, and green. Go now. We got to see that in the Margarita fire, which was in 2023, up on the reservation there and out of Oak Cliffs. So it's here. It's fortunately wildfire is coming more and more into our side. But the biggest thing that I want you guys to take away is you can be prepared. I've talked with all walks of people from Taholah down to Grayland and east to McCleary and say, well, why should I be prepared? And I can't force you to be prepared. We can be prepared as a community because when Cascadia hits, we do a big push on saying be 2 weeks ready. That's what the state changed from 2016 when they did a big Cascadia Rising exercise. It used to be 96 hours, which is what it is in healthcare. But we have now changed to being 2 weeks ready. And for Grace Harbor County, we promote, if you can, be a month ready. Because it's going to take quite a bit of time for help to arrive. I'll tell you one thing that, and then I'll wrap up because I know and I can talk forever. My business card is in the back. If you have any interest, feel free to email me, call me. I can talk forever. But one of the things that we've been working on in the last handful of years is with this Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, how are we going to receive supplies? Because as Scott was talking, the bridges are not most likely going to withstand the shaking or the tsunami waves. So if we don't have bridges coming from inland out here, how is our best case scenario? How are we going to get supplies? You're going to have supplies here. The other way is from the sea, right? So a couple years ago, we worked with the Navy, and we have identified 8 landing sites throughout Grace Harbor County, including the tribe has 1 or 2. And those landing sites are, of course, beach sites that can support a hovercraft landing from the Navy. So we've worked with them to identify those sites, and the planning process we're still working on is, okay, we've got those landing sites, now what? How do we get supplies to those from those spots out? Where is our community points of distribution? So these are all things that we're working on in our office as everything else comes up and we have time to plan. So I will stop talking because again, I can talk forever, but is there any questions for me? Yeah.
I was wondering, it disturbed me to hear that, for example, the sign in Pacific Beach is sending people in the wrong direction, and there's no sign in Oakland. Who's responsible for putting up the signs?
Yeah, so it's a team effort. When the signs first got placed, they were all placed with previous inundation mapping. So before, in 2018, was really the first round where these kind of maps were put out. They redid them and produced these great velocity and wave depth maps. Since then, the Washington Geological Survey has done quite a bit of effort to create these walking maps, because as we've been told, and as we know, that walking is going to be our best case to evacuate, not driving. So you will see throughout the county that there are certain tsunami hazard routes that are still in that driving route. They're not wrong, but for a local tsunami, which is our worst case scenario in our local, event, they need to be switched to a walking route. I hate to be the government person up here that says it takes time and bodies, but we have worked with WASDOT and with our county roads to try and gather these and make sure that they're in the right direction. But there's more work to be done. So, yes?
I'm getting concerned that federal help won't be coming. Is the state preparing anything to make up for, even NOAA might not exist, I don't know.
Yeah, she asked kind of what is the, are we preparing, unknowing what the federal system may look like in the future. And yes, we are all kind of waiting. I mean, all of us, I think, are kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. And I will tell you, a lot of the things that we do in our offices are grant funded. It's not all of it, it's not my whole budget, but it's a good portion of my budget is grant funded. So unfortunately, the beauty of having those grant fundings is it takes a lot of burdens on the taxpayers. We have some, I'll say for me, we have general fund, we have general fund budget that we pull from to support some of the other projects, but we also get grants. And so we try to manage that line pretty quickly. And I know the state is also working on that with the legislator to try and put places in, funding in places for post-recovery, post-disaster. There's a whole presentation I could give on kind of the post-disaster funding mechanisms. But one of those pieces is kind of the FEMA check that you've heard people refer to as the FEMA check. That's what we call individual assistance. That's one that the state is working on trying to get at the local level to where we don't have to, we can make that decision at a state and local level if we need to give support to our citizens and not be bound to the federal system, if that makes sense. So we're working on it, and I will say with some of the climate changes, and not climate change, but political climate changes, that is all in the front of our minds.
Sorry, is there a central control, central head? I deal with ham radio, and I'm a part of the areas group around here. We have regular exercises, and we make sure that our radios work, and we've got things that run on battery and so on. But this is the first I've heard that you guys have talked to the Navy about putting hovercraft on the beaches, and so what came to my mind was, who is on top of all of that is coordinating all that? When we do just a quick check with our radios on Sunday evenings, we say, there's a little preamble that says, we're under the auspices of the Grace Harbor Sheriff's Department. Mm-hmm. But how does the Grace Harbor Sheriff's Department deal with, like the EOC, the Emergency Center in Montesano, and how do they deal with the Navy? It seems like we've got disparate sort of resources, but who's putting that all together? Is that you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So within our office, we do have a ham radio group that we utilize and we work with as emergency workers through our office. So yes, those are the ones that say that we're under the Sheriff's Office, which is also us at Emergency Management under the Sheriff's Office. So yes, when it comes to the Navy, when it comes to Cascadia, a lot of the coordinating efforts are going to be done at the state level. So one of the pieces that I know Clint will probably talk about in preparedness is how do we communicate. So we have those ham radios. We work with the state a lot with the Sheriff's Network, and we're working with them to make sure that we have that connectivity. They do the 5th Saturday of every month exercises, but really the state is going to be that coordinating level with the federal assets of that side. But for us, we have more work to do with the Navy, and their person just retired, so it's of course relearning a whole new body. But really adding those sites into our plan and making sure that the relationships are there with the Coast Guard or with the Navy, that they know what frequencies they can get us on. We have also multiple different radios within our emergency operations center, from public safety to amateur to aviation. So there's we have quite a bit of redundancy and capabilities within our emergency operations center in Montana. I think that answered your question. I'm so sorry. Yes.
One of my questions is, I know, the Go Back, and watching the LA fires is what prompted me to go a little nuts on that, and Costco got a lot of my money with preparedness, things that I hadn't already had, but it was really expensive to do, and especially at more than one home, and 3 of us with cars. Is there programs, or what does the county do to assist people in making go bags and after the fact having what they need?
Yeah.
When it's not that affordable for most people to be able to, prepare for them.
Yeah, we're not wrong at all. It's one of the challenges we face I can say from all of us at our level, is how do I tell a family who can't put food on their table, to say, hey, I need you to keep 2 weeks of food in a backpack so that you can evacuate. And it's not possible. So one of the ways that we have been able to kind of put our money where our mouth is, quite literally, is at our expo, which is in July. Every year we've had them now since 2016, I think was our first year. We've done this Go Bag scavenger hunt. And so we produce bags, and we work with our partners in Clint and Daniel. They have come every year, and they set up a booth, and there's kind of a bingo card that people can go around and gather supplies, and they are all different kinds of supplies, from water to flashlights to lots of other food, granola bars. And so there's a lot of other opportunities that we are able to provide. Unfortunately, I don't want to say sell out because they're not purchased, but they're given out within the first 30 minutes of it. So we utilize a grant. To kind of fund some of those purchasing of the bags and the supplies that we can. But that's one of the ways we try to help.
So is the expo the only way in the North Beach community that wants assistance making a go bag? Is the expo the only resource for that?
It's the only one that we have right now that we can do. Because not to get into the whole, there's a lot of gifting of public funds and all this jazz when it comes to our budget. So a lot of the grants are our opportunity to do that, but they're stricter on what we can provide out. So it's a challenge. It's something they want us to promote, and it's hard to promote it because there's not a lot of funding mechanisms for it. But I can talk
That's my assumption, but
If you have further questions, maybe ask. I'm afraid the clock's moving.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Next speaker is Daniel Ravenel, and he's the emergency manager just up the road from us for Quinault Indian Nation. And he's going to talk about some of the work that they've been doing. He's been in that position almost 3 years. He's the one who turned me on to Hannah because he had told me he learned a lot from her. And before that, he was a wildlife biologist and worked in environmental protection all over from Yellowstone National Park to Aberdeen. And before that was 12 years with the Coast Guard, working in boarding ships on behalf of the federal government to do inspections, or I think he was kind of looking for the bad guys. Anyway, I bet he can tell stories about that. So anyway, he lives in Hoquiam on a hobby farm with his wife and 2 children. And so please, welcome Daniel.
Thank you, everybody. It's an honor to be here tonight. Hard acts to follow. I'll talk about for a second. When I think about go bigs for my pets, I have 65 pets. So my go big for my pets is gigantic. The goats have to carry their own goats. Somebody just asked a question real quick here about helping communities prepare. And so I'm going to deviate just real quick to address that one thing that we're doing in Taholah. So I work for the tribe just up the road, right? And I know one of the common things we're talking about is food is really expensive, right? And so it is hard to plan for weeks, months, and things like that in advance. So we start to partner with like other outside agencies. There's a lot of food that goes to waste here, right? And so one of the things we did in our community is we purchased a food freezer. And so we actually make and create our own freeze-dried food for the community members, right? It's typically unrealistic for us to ask a family that's struggling to put 2 weeks on the table to tell them to go out to, REI and purchase $200 worth of food. That can be very difficult. So one of the things we've done is we've worked with some of our local food banks, and we've helped to create, storage of food, like 5-gallon buckets at Home Depot for $3, Mylar bags, little oxygen absorbers, and we can create our own food for really not much. I'm not going to say that because that food freezer is very expensive. But sorry to go off on a tangent real quick. I just wanted to throw that out there. That's one thing in our community, right? And a big aspect of the tribal community is building resilience, right? And I will say the first thing I did when I became an emergency manager, I reached out to other emergency managers. You guys have a great asset in Canada and Plank here too. They've helped me a lot too. But one thing I will say with a community like this is there's probably a lot of great people here that have amazing skills. Obviously listening to Scott speak earlier, get to know your neighbors, right? Build those plans with them. Get to know what they can bring to you. So in Taholah, right? If you've never been there, it's definitely worth the trip. It's a beautiful area, beautiful drive, but we are on the coast. I know you all saw that the map is 30 minutes, right? We have small protections up for the community, like a seawall, right, which is breached realistically every king tide, and we have to evacuate part of the lower village. We realistically know, we have some of our critical infrastructure there, right? So when a tsunami happens, we have our police station there, we have our court system there, our EMS is there, a lot of the businesses, our elder housing there, right? And if people are familiar with tribal culture, you'll know how important elders are for that culture, right? And so we have to think about what we can do. And historically, I know Hannah talked about it, everybody thought, okay, we're gonna have 20 to 30 minutes, we're gonna jump on our vehicles and go drive, right? One of the biggest things I think I try to talk to people about is, hey, your vehicles are not gonna be the way you're gonna get out of here, right? You need to think about humping it up the hill and so forth. So what the nation has really done is looked at a relocation plan, right? And so for those of you that don't know, the Taholah Nation was one of 3 tribes in the nation to receive a $25 million from the Biden administration infrastructure improvement grant, right? Well, $25 million, a handful of years ago was a lot, right? But if anybody's ever built a house, I know there's houses going up around here every day, it seems like, a piece of plywood that used to cost $25 is now $75 or $80, right? So that $25 million doesn't get us as far as we want. And so us as a nation, what we're trying to do is plan and prioritize what we're going to do. The reason we're actually able to get this grant and be competitive with it is because we had a plan. We wrote a plan, we hired a firm that kind of came up to do it, and we had a champion in President Von Sharp. If you've never heard her speak, I highly recommend it. She's a courageous speaker and was a president of the nation for a long time, well before I was there, and can speak very passionately about climate change and the effects it had on the tribe. And so Fawn really, I'll say, spearheaded that aspect of getting us some of that funding and looking at the relocation. So the tribal culture, right, the youth and elderly are sort of like the highlight of the culture. So the first building the nation built up there is called the Generations Building. If you've never been up there, that's where my office is. Please come in and stop by. We'd love to host you there. I have an office this in my back that also functions as our EOC. Hannah and Clint, I'm sure don't know this, us running small departments, our offices also function as EOC, or maybe we have a spare conference room or something like that, right? We're not like King County who has we'll stop there. So the first building we built up there on part of this relocation project was the Generations Building. So what we did is we prioritized our youth. We moved the daycare centers up there. We moved the elder center up there, and we moved, I'm just very lucky we got our office up there, right? We built the IT department up there, and some of the critical infrastructure the nation needs to succeed, right? We know we have a long ways to go, right? We know we have most of the housing down there, and we also realistically know that families have lived on the coastline for generations and generations, much longer than I've been here. We know we're not going to move everybody, right? Some people are saying hey, I have a 360-degree view of the Pacific Ocean every day. I'm 75 years old. if it happens, it happens. You know, I mean, where we're really finding a lot of momentum is young parents with kids, you know, that are really concerned about that. They want to move their house and get up out of the zone. So I'll say, the other thing I think about a lot, somebody gets waved at me when my time's up. Sorry. The other thing we think about a lot, right, is when this tsunami happens. So we know that it's going to take us years and years and years to get out of, you know, to do this village relocation. So we have to think about it as, okay, when everybody comes up there, you know, we realize in Taholah, just like a lot of these coastal communities, we're going to be on an island, right? So a huge aspect of our job is not only planning and getting that information out there, getting tsunami sign out, but it's also planning for the survival of the people, right? In my mind, everybody's going to survive this event, right? And that's how I plan for it. So we come up with distribution pods. We do a lot of community planning, right? Thinking about that, you know, if it happens on a 2 o'clock on a school day, right? Where are you going to meet your kids? Where are you going to do reunification? We try to open our office to speak to a lot of the community members to help them kind of create those family plans. One of the biggest things I think, you know, and this is why these meetings are so fantastic, is we're starting these conversations now, right? Like having these conversations now kind of gets you in that right mindset where when something happens, you have some kind of plan, right? The other aspect of it is practicing it, right? I mean, she mentioned I come from a military background, right? The military is going to preach at you how to do something, and then you're going to drill and drill and drill and drill and do it until you're actually really good at it, right? So that's the other thing I tell people to do. It's one thing to have that plan and to write it out and have those conversations, but you actually want to, you know, walk it, right? You actually want to do it. So we try to do yellow brick road events, things like that, where Hannah and Clint, I know, do a great job of doing that too. I will say, you know, I represent the tribe, right? So we have multiple tribal communities, and I don't want to forget about Queens, right? So if you've never been up to Queens, a beautiful, small tribal village up on the north end of the reservation. Yes, the other like village that we think about. Queens currently, and Scott's topic was fantastic, has their evacuation plan to the Queens Clearwater School. That's roughly 5 miles across, I don't even know how many bridges, maybe 4 or 5 bridges to that school location, and that's their rendezvous point, right? So a big thing that, you know, we try to do with these local communities is talk to them about what's realistic and what's not going to happen. We obviously know, you know, talking about these events tonight, that if there's a catastrophic event like a tsunami, that, you know, those bridges are going to be gone. And so trying to get people to that right mindset of like where you're going to go, where you're going to get the rendezvous and things like that. That's really like what I mostly have about the relocation and everything. It's already cut it short, but yeah, is there anything else I missed? Or I guess I'll open it up to questions now. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this is related at all. I have read about the relocation plan and the grant, which was, you know, the money, that's amazing. I've heard also that we're trying to relocate Pacific Beach Elementary. This might not be your area, Danny, but Marie, what is the timeline for that? Since they're in touch.
Scott, do you know
just the right guy.
So in addition to my newspaper, I'm president of the North Beach School Board.
Would you please repeat the question?
The question was, do we have plans to relocate Pacific Beach Elementary out of the inundation zone? Are you hearing me?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay. Yes, we do have plans to relocate Pacific Beach Elementary outside of the inundation zone. Thankfully, a few years ago, the state legislature approved and set aside a large pot of money for coastal communities and school districts within those coastal communities who face various, you know, seismic threats, either to the buildings themselves or to subsequent, in the shape, or to subsequent inundation. At Pacific Beach Elementary, we have both threats in spades. You saw the wave heights, Pacific Beach Elementary, I think you had 29 feet underwater.
29 feet underwater, but it will not, the water will not be the threat.
Yeah, it'll be 29 feet above the rubble of Pacific Beach Elementary, which was the oldest building on Pacific Beach Elementary campus was built during the Eisenhower administration. And the buildings have been assessed and they are not seismically sound. They were not built, like, for example, Ocean Shores Elementary was built after that early 2000s date. Okay, that Scott mentioned when the seismic standards improved. PBD doesn't meet those standards. So it's going to be a bad situation. So the funding we have available from the state is going to allow us to acquire land outside the inundation zone in Pacific Beach and construct a new elementary school on that site. So we are working through the process now. The current phase we're in, we have evaluated the seismic suitability of the piece of land in the community, and we are entering into negotiations with the property owner to acquire that land using state funding. Our current timeline has us starting design of the new school in around September of this year. And from the time we start to design, a typical cycle to have the new building constructed would be about 2 years, maybe a little longer.
Is Seabrook involved in that as far as the LLC? For some reason that sticks in my mind from when I read about it. That Seabrook or the foundation or the LLC are involved in this? The land, maybe?
A subsidiary of Seabrook Land Company is the property owner
That's where I was trying to make that
acquiring
connection.
property from. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Daniel. That was really interesting. Okay, now we've got the dynamic Clint Davis coming up. And he's going to get very practical and talk about specific solutions and preparations. And he's been in this business for like 32 years, more than 30 years. And he's now the emergency manager of the Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation. And he's been in emergency medicine and ambulance service. And, I don't have time to list all of his accomplishments and all the boards he's on and all the groups he's with. But let me just say, it's really an impressive list. And I think one of the most interesting things is that his master's thesis was about the challenges of facing emergencies in rural environments, specifically focusing on Grays Harbor County. So, what a resource to have in this community. So, take it away, Glenn.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Hannah and Daniel. Just so you know them closely, we sit on boards together, we meet together. Our main concern is not what we're about, it's about what is going on in your lives. I think the big question is, people say, what keeps you up at night? And I had a senator, or a state senator came to visit 2 weeks ago on our tribe. She says, what keeps you up at night? You should never ask that to an emergency manager, because the list is this long. And it's the worst case. We feel like sometimes we cry wolf, and we don't mean to scare people. I think tonight from Scott's presentation, from what Hannah said, what Daniel said, we're not here to scare anybody. We're here to help you be prepared. And we work with a lot of great agencies, and some questions came up about FEMA, they came up about the state. Yes, there's some uncertainty about funding right now, but I think the real reason is that we're going to talk about tonight in the practical part for me, and excuse the cert basic training. I basically gutted this whole presentation and redid it completely. So I'm not going to bore you with that because we've already seen what the tsunami will do. And much like Marie, who researched when she moved here, one of the things we researched is we were going to be at least 100 feet above the beach. And our house is 100 feet above the beach. And I'm not saying if you're not 100 feet above the beach, you're in trouble, because we've already looked at what you need to do as far as walking maps. So let's just talk about some other things. So I don't know what I just did there, but let's just move on down to some of the organizations. So as far as handouts go, if you leave tonight with nothing else, please grab Hannah's card for sure and sign up for the notifications. Grab my card if you'd like to. Grab one of everything back there because there's great information. If nothing else, our organizations can give great information, great warning opportunities, and help you know what's going on. We can't do a lot about individual preparation, but that's what we're going to talk a little bit about. So getting through that, let's talk about this. If I skipped it, I don't know what happened to it. It's in there someplace. Okay, I was going to talk about FEMA. Let's just pass up FEMA right now. Let's talk about the big organizations that are out there. FEMA's up here at the national level. At the state level, we have the State Emergency Management Division. We are all in Homeland Security Region 3. And down to the near bare bones, we are in Grace Harbor. And then it really gets down into the nitty-gritty. We're down here in the North Beach area. So all that other stuff that happens in the 39 counties in the state, the 29 tribes, and the 77,000 people outside this area, yes, we care about them, but we need to worry about what's going on right here in our backyard. So let's talk about some of the resources we have here. We have a great fire department. We have some people in here that work in the fire department. We have some great people, guys and gals, that work in the fire department. But guess what? The fire department, FEMA, state EMD, and all those folks, when something catastrophic happens, like the Cascadia, what do you think they're going to be able to do for you? Anybody have any ideas? And it's not because they don't want to, and it's not because they can't, but let's look at people power. Let's say there's 20 people. Let's just say there are. Let's say there's 20 people in the fire department. What are 20 people going to do with about the 1,200 residents we have in our area, not counting Taholah? What's your population, Daniel? There, I think census right around 5,000. Yeah.
Lower Village is 450, and I think the Upper Village.
And then Queets.
Queets is 200-300.
Okay, so we're talking about, and they have their own EMS and fire up there, but for our region, we have about 20 people. So they're going to be doing some awesome stuff. They're going to respond if they can get to you. But we're going to be mainly concerning and helping ourselves. That's what we're going to be doing. So let's talk about some meeting places. We identified the assembly as the fire station. That's one place, but there's some other places. Anything look familiar to you in there? Okay. How about the Pacific Beach Naval Station? Do you think that's up high enough? It is. What about Chapel by the Sea? You see, we have some Chapel by the Sea. The pastor is here, Linda. Are you up pretty high, aren't you? So we talked about an assembly place, the fire department. Behind the Chapel of the Sea is a CPOD, a community point of distribution. There's a Connex back there with a lot of equipment and supplies and food. Likewise at the fire department, there's Connexes with equipment there. Those are places we can go. What else you see? You see Town Hall. Are we up pretty high at Town High?
We're out of the zone, out of the inundation.
Right at, right?
Yeah, just below us. Yep.
Now I did put the picture right here of the Low Clips Grocery. That's really in the edge. It's not good enough. But let's look at the people on the flats. We saw the stuff that Scott put up. We're walking distance in the flats. You know where that is, down by Joe Creek, down the Low Clips River, that way, down that way. That's kind of the most challenging area for us, the people down in the flats. They're looking at 15 to 30 to 45 minutes. If you're in that little spit of land that goes across the Low Clips River into the tribal area, that's a 45-minute walk from there. So what does that mean? How about notification? So let's talk a little bit about communication for a minute. Let's talk about some things we can do. Okay, anybody ever have a walkie-talkie, one of those little family service walkie-talkies? You ever seen those? Okay, those are great. They work from like point to point, maybe in your neighborhood, maybe in your household, maybe with line of sight and it's really, really, really good, maybe a mile, maybe. What are some other options? Who's our ham radio operator here? So I'm a ham radio operator. We have a few of them that are scattered amongst us. Ham radio, you can talk a little farther, right? If you have a tower up, the right frequencies, you can talk a little farther. How about something else? How about a sat phone? Anybody have a sat phone? Who has a sat phone? Look in the back of the room. Our two emergency managers. Okay, so we have a sat phone. Okay, the problem with a sat phone is they're expensive, and the monthly cost is expensive, so most of us are not going to have a satellite phone. So what are some alternatives for us as individuals besides the sat phone? Some of the things we get, let's hear it. I'd like to hear it.
Well, T-Mobile has the new service where you can go ahead and set up the full.
What's that again, sir?
I said T-Mobile phones now have it's actually a pilot zone where you can pick up the global satellites. And I was up in Alaska and I was able to use that successfully to communicate with my
So
family.
thank you for bringing that up. So T-Mobile has partnered with Starlink, and they have now partnered to do a prototype program that uses text messaging and voicemail. Right now, it's not allowing you to do voice through satellite yet. It's in a pilot program. I believe that's the future. It's going to marry basically a cell phone to a satellite phone to give you that capability. I believe that's going to be the future. How many here have a hard time getting out on their cell phones from time to time? Most of you have what? Probably Verizon? Yeah, you're not like, yeah, I have to, right? Okay, so that's some of the issues we have. We are cut off topography-wise from some of the radio, from some of the cell phones. So we have to think outside the box. The T-Mobile is one way to do it. Another way to do it is a little device at the bottom. It's called a Zoleo. It is basically a little satellite pager. It's about $200, about $20 a month, and you go, what good is texting? Well, it's really good if you can't talk to anybody else. And basically, it talks to your phone by Bluetooth, and then we'll go out Wi-Fi, then cell, and then satellite. And you can send texts to anybody. They don't have to have one of these. You just have to have one. Okay, so that will work. There's also an SOS button. You can flip it open and hit the SOS, and it'll send it out to the Coast Guard, Daniel. And you used to get those right all the time. Just kidding. I don't think you got them. They send it out to all the authorities. So you were bringing up a good point, my ham radio operator. What do we do out here locally to communicate? Right now, there's a gap, to be honest. Right now, there's a gap. We're working at the state level with the tribes on a system that uses high-frequency ham radio. It's called shares, where the license is granted free. There is no cost. You do have to buy the equipment. That's a conversation for a future date to look at maybe helping this community get a shares license and a shares radio. And with that, we could talk to any EOC. We could talk basically to FEMA, to the state, to any county, to any tribe, and we could actually talk even further depending on the band. We could go all the way and talk out of state. So that's something we want to maybe look at down the road because we're isolated here. Okay, and the other thing we look at are other opportunities. Where to go? Oh, it's not there. Let's go on to the Go Kit. We all raised up a hand. We had about, 80% of the people have a Go Kit? And we had a question way in the back, which is a really great question, is how do we put a Go Kit together? At the back of the room are some samples of Go Kits. That one on the left is my wife's. The one in the middle is the one we issue to our tribal employees. And the red one is one of my personal ones. Yes, there's a cost, but you start slowly and small. What's that adage about how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So you start with something out of your pantry with a toothbrush, you add a little clothing, you add a little item. Dollar store is a great place to get stuff. And you add to your kit. So there's two types in my opinion. There's a Go Kit, in case you have to go in your car and move. And there's a Stay Kit. And you might be thinking, well, what's a Stay Kit? Well, it might be your pantry. It might be your closet. But here's the thing about doing it more like this in a trash can or a big bucket. What happens, and this is the big question, tsunami, Scott, 9.0, you think there's going to be some structural damage to homes here?
More than likely.
Do you think some of the homes may not be habitable and occupied?
Most of them will not be.
So let's start thinking about terms, and I'll tell you right now, my wife's idea of roughing it is the Marriott. I'm just going to tell you right now. She does not like to camp. And I got to be honest, I don't either. But let's start thinking in terms of camping. Think about getting a sleeping bag, a tent, a lantern, a cot, the things that you could take and put in a common area. Seabrook has a lot of common areas. We have parks. We have the arena where the horses are. We have different places. If we had to, we could set up an ad hoc camp and have shelter. We don't need shelter. So it's something to think about. As a family, maybe have some camping supplies, even if you hate camping. Okay? So think outside the box. Think about if you can't be habitable. The statistics I saw from the 9.0 were somewhere close to 1 million displaced people in the state. How many people we have in the state? Just shy of 8 million, I believe. Just about in the state of Washington. That's over 10%. That's 15% of our state population displaced. And a lot of people think, well, we're at risk here. But everybody from here all the way to the I-5 corridor at risk, the Puget Sound, we'll have inundation, the whole state. And I don't want to be scary, but even though we have 8 points of distribution for the Navy, do you think the Navy's going to be showing up with a destroyer and landing craft the day after? I can guarantee you they will not. So here's what we need to think about. 72 hours is awesome. Let's start thinking about 3 weeks. We need to have a 3-week supply. Some of us say 3 weeks to a month. And I wouldn't be out of line saying maybe a month. So start thinking about having a month's supply. If you have a Go Kit, you can take it in your car if you can drive, put it on your bike if you're biking, or you can walk with it. If you have a Stay Kit, a couple neighbors can help drag it to the ad hoc camping area that's over in the playground or over by the horse corral. So just think about having 2 versions of that. Start with the Go Kit, get with the Stay Kit. Make sense? Right? So that's the biggest thing you can do right now is prepare yourself to have some of those resources available where you could be prepared to sweat it out. Because it's probably going to be 3 weeks plus. Make any sense to everybody? Here, you want to hold that? You want to press the SOS button? And what does it do? So you might say, well, would I ever test this out? Yes, you can. So you can pick a list of people that you would send text messages to, and when it sends that to them, if you want to just do a check-in, it'll tell them your location, your latitude and longitude, and a set message that says, I'm okay. You can do that as a test. You can pick people that you want to reach out to make the list 30 people long. And if it's really an emergency, it goes out to all the authorities. So we proposed this to our tribal council, and we were able to get that for all the tribal leaders. And Andy said, look, it's expensive, $200 a pop and $20 a month. I look at that as pretty cheap insurance when you think about it. No, you press the test button. Question?
What is the best location in your home or not in your home to keep the Stay Kit?
Well, so the Stay Kit, so a lot of people will put it in their closet and bury it. So the problem with that is, can you get to it? And what if your roof collapses and structurally we have an impediment? So there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. Keep it in an outside location, maybe in a garage if you have it. An outside, maybe not, if you don't have it. The best, well, I don't know. You know what, it varies. It's kind of up to what your house looks like, the location you're at, and where you can probably get at it. The thing about the Go Kits, some people keep them in your car. I actually have several. I have a couple. I have one at home that's by the bed in the bedroom. I have another one in the car, and we have one for every vehicle. So you start small and you work your way up. That's a great question, though. Where are you going to put it? And you might get some help to throw it in and drag it across the street. So Scott already talked about getting to higher ground. Our biggest thing is to get to higher ground, and then you start thinking, okay, we're done. But we did talk about, and you brought it up, about the vertical evacuation systems. They're called VES, right? Currently, we only have 2 in our area. We have one in Acosta, and we have one in Shoalwater. I've been up on that several times with the director down there, Ken, and I can tell you, it's awesome, but we need about 27 on the North Coast. So I was talking with the Outer Coast Tsunami Work Group, which a lot of us work with, Alyssa and Maximilian, and I'm on that work group, and they talked about having 27 vertical evacuation systems for the North Beach alone. Think of the average cost. The one in Shoalwater cost $4.6 million. The tribe provided $1 million and the other was FEMA funded at $3.5 million. And it's a very basic tower. Anybody have seen a picture of it? If you haven't seen a picture of it, oh, this one doesn't have it. There you go. That's what happens when we have too many. I was going to show you a picture of it. So what I'd like to do is suggest that we presented a lot of stuff tonight. You're probably your head's spinning. So I have prepared 2 documents. Each document has about 30 links on it of where to get this stuff, the best place I've found, the best food that tastes good, the radios that work good, all the things I've tested out over 40 years. And I'd be willing to send those to you. So if you grab my card, or I know that Maria's captured information, we will endeavor to send out an email with those links so you guys can go. What we're hoping is, after you leave, you go investigate. Get on the sign up for Hannah. Go look at her website. I can tell you, the county website has the maps there. The county website has the sign up for notifications. The county has a lot of resources on their on their website. Likewise, Daniel has resources. We have resources. There's plenty of things. We hope you go home from here thinking about what you can do to be better prepared. So I'll take any questions. If you want to go to the back, there's some samples of radios, there's samples of backpacks, there's samples of water treatment, and let's just close with that. You might think, well, we got a lot of ocean water. can tell you, I know an organization, Ken Ufkin at Shoalwater Tribe got a grant, and he has a desalination trailer. Have you guys ever seen that? You have to see it? I'm pointing my comrades in the back. It's a trailer where you can put it right into the ocean, pump water. Now, Shoalwater is right on the ocean, right? I mean, they were there. They could throw it in there, they could pump it out, and they could desalinate that water and turn it into potable water, and it's awesome. I don't think we're going to do that here. So what we have is the Moclips River, we got Joe Creek, and if you go far enough, we got the Taholah River. What we need to do is have containers, and if you look in the back, there's a 1.3 gallon container that collapses, and you can fill it with water. And you're like, oh, so what? That's Joe Creek water, I'm not drinking that. Okay, Joy, you're in the back. Look at that young lady in the back. You grab right behind you that first aid kit, there's a little blue thing. Hold up those little blue things. Just hold those up, hold them up high. Those are like life straws. Those basically go onto any water bottle, 12 ounce, 16, 2 liter, 1 liter. And when you hook it up to that, you can drink anything. You can drink Joe Creek gutter water, Seabrook runoff water. It'll purify it. So we got plenty of water, we just have to treat it. I'd recommend looking something like that in your kit. I have 2 of them in mine. And you can get those on Amazon. You can get anything on Amazon. So basically, I'll send you that list with all those links. You guys look them up and go start thinking about the stuff you want to do. Okay, questions?
Can you talk about the importance of practicing the walking routes? Like, say that the power's going to be out and it's pitch black.
So 2 things they do. Up at Quinault and at Shoalwater, they do Yellow Brick Road, where they actually practice the evacuation routes, and they practice and do it as a drill. That'd be something you want to talk to about, maybe organizing it as a community group to have an event. I would prefer it was in a more temperate weather, maybe not in the middle of February. And along the way, what they do is they put little booths with information. We invite our sheriff's department, we can invite our emergency management people, we can invite different people to come out and distribute information and share things, and practice walking those routes. And then practice using our communication devices.
We do the Great Shakeout drill at Seabrook. We've done it the last several years. Unfortunately, it tends to be inclement weather usually, but we do a practice.
Well, we can't predict the weather, so when an event happens, it's going to happen, right? So the worst title in the word is, and I think for our calling and our job, and I feel it's like a calling for me, is emergency manager. How do you manage an emergency? I mean, it's a paradox, really. Hannah, do you feel good about managing emergencies? None of us really do. That scares us. But we're hoping you are more prepared by just starting small. Just start small and work your way out. We could talk about a lot more things. Next meetings, we could talk about more communication. We could talk about a lot of things. But this is an introduction. Yeah, Sheila.
My question is, if you live on high ground already, do you want us to go to one of these places? Somebody said something about head counts. Shouldn't we stay at our home, or should we?
Well, so you're down in the you're not in high ground where you're at. You're kind of halfway. You're up and then you're down again.
Okay.
And from where you're at, you could hoof it in about 20 minutes to the fire station.
Okay.
You could do it. I would feel comfortable getting to high ground and looking at what the stabilization. You gotta remember, there's aftershocks, there's second waves and tertiary waves. We may see debris coming in, and what the more damaging part is sometimes the secondary bringing debris in, retreating with the damage from the buildings and bringing it back in and causing jamming up. So we think about this, and when people think about, are we going to get help coming, remember what Scott talked about, we all talked about, we are basically going to be little islands. Taholah is going to be an island. They're going to be cut off because of their access. Everybody that's basically east going up Ocean Beach Road will be cut off because of basically Joe Creek. And the same going south, that bridge will go out as well. Scott and I collaborated on this, and we've discussed mutually that every bridge will be compromised. So just think of us as being islands. We'll be on our own for 3 weeks. If you start thinking about that, then you won't be so shocked. And it's not like it's a bad news thing, it's just let's be prepared, right?
Right.
What's that saying they have? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So let's not be that. Let's just plan a little bit better. Any other questions? I know it's been keeping late, and you want to do a drawing, and you have other things, and we're like me, I'm usually in bed by now. I get up at 4 to go to work. So I'm an old guy. That's all I have for you guys anyway. Thank you. On the weekend, I am one of your firefighter EMTs. I've been running almost 11 years here, so I'm glad to serve you guys. I haven't been in some of your homes. It's probably a good thing. So you really don't want to see me. So I'm happy to do that and happy to serve. And any way we can do to help, we're here.
Thank you, Clint.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
Here
you go, sir.
You have this resource living here, he lives in Oakville. So, yeah, you know, I've been thinking a lot about, like, when the power goes out here, do you guys see how dark it gets? Like, you cannot see your hand in front of your face. So I think that having a good flashlight and having good batteries is probably a #1 thing. And, you know, so that when you practice walking the routes that would get you to high ground, you should do it in the dark too, just to be prepared.
The last earthquake, big earthquake that hit here in 1700 was on a January night about midnight. So it was mighty dark. I bet it was raining.
Yeah. It was probably raining. Okay, so the last part of what we want to do, in addition to the handing out these wonderful door prizes that have all been donated, is I want the people who live in Seabrook to gather and talk with John. He's back there. He's the safety manager or director of safety at Seabrook. And then the people from PB and Mo Clips will be on that island, can meet with Clint and Hannah, because I think that Seabrook is probably more organized thus far than those communities are, and we're a little bit higher. And Daniel, if there's anybody here from the Quinault communities. If not, you can join whoever you want. So, or you can go home to your kids. Anyway, but yeah, we do have some wonderful door prizes. So, while you're gathering, let's have the Seabrook people meet over here and the Mole Clips PB people meet over here. And while you're gathering, I'm going to start calling out door prizes.